Roman consul Gaius Julius Caesar was a man of many conquests and a victor of many battles throughout his long military career. But none could arguably have been as important for his legacy as the Battle of Pharsalus. After suffering a heavy defeat to his fellow consul and rival Pompey Magnus at the Battle of Dyrrhachium, Caesar moved his entire army eastward, attempting to entice Pompey to give pursuit, and pursue is exactly what Pompey did. After roughly 1 month of shadowing Caesar's army, both forces finally met on the battlefield near the Greek city of Pharsalus. Caesar's legions, although numerically inferior to that of Pompey's force, were far more experienced and battle-tested. It was Caesar who took the initiative and opted to give battle. He gave the signal for his men to advance on Pompey's lines. Caesar's 10th Legion was stationed on his right flank alongside Caesar himself and were commanded by Publius Sulla. On the left were his 8th and 9th Legions under the command of Mark Antony. Stationed at the center were the 11th and 12th Legions under the command of Domitius Calvinus. In addition, Caesar had stationed 3,000 men from various legions, arming them with spears and leaving them in reserve to inevitably aid his cavalry once the battle commenced, as his cavalry were vastly outnumbered opposite to Pompey's. Pompey Magnus knew that his crucial advantage lay in his numerically superior cavalry and infantry. His force was drawn up to best optimize their effectiveness. With the advantage of numbers, Pompey opted to hold a defensive formation. He stationed 2 of his most experienced legions on his left flank under the command of Lentulus. In the center, he stationed Scipio and his Syrian legions, while the right flank was held by 2 legions combined into one with a river to their right protecting their flank. They were commanded by Ahenobarbus. On Pompey's left wing were his 7,000 auxiliary cavalry under the command of Labienus. As Caesar's legions closed the distance, they maintained a disciplined and tightly packed formation. Now was the time. Pompey ordered forth his superior cavalry to engage Caesar's. Although they were outnumbered 2 to 1, Caesar's veteran infantry were holding their ground firmly. On the right wing, Caesar's cavalry were starting to buckle under the immense pressure, and they were forced to pull back. Although it seemed disastrous, this was all part of Caesar's grand plan. The commander of Pompey's cavalry force, Labienus, was charging straight into a trap. Caesar's reserves sprung into action. They quickly closed the distance armed with pointed spears and tied down Pompey's cavalry. Pompey's cavalry were now tied down with the spearmen, and in a losing fight. And to make matters worse, Caesar's cavalry had circled back around and were charging straight into their exposed rear. Labienus and his cavalry were routed from the battlefield. It was at this point that the battle had turned in Caesar's favor. He knew now was the time to act. The signal was given. Caesar's spearmen hastily marched across the battlefield, with their orders to outflank and encircle Pompey's left flank. Caesar's spearmen came crashing into Pompey's left, causing sheer panic and chaos. Pompey was completely caught off guard and unable to respond. A bloodbath soon ensued. The rest of Pompey's force soon broke in rapid succession. Caesar, knowing his victory needed to be fully complete, ordered his men to give pursuit. His men pursued and then stormed Pompey's camp, capturing most of Pompey's soldiers, allowing them to surrender and join Caesar's army. Although Pompey and his main generals were able to escape the battlefield, with some fleeing to Iberia and Carthage, while Pompey fled to Egypt. Caesar's masterful victory was complete. The casualties that were reported were 15,000 killed with an additional 24,000 men captured on Pompey's side, while according to Caesar, whom we know to have been biased in his victory reports, had lost only 1,200 men. Hearing of Pompey's flight to Egypt, Caesar remained in hot pursuit, first landing in Asia and reaching Alexandria on the 2nd of October 48 BC, where he learnt of Pompey's murder and then was embroiled in a dynastic dispute between Ptolemy XIII and Cleopatra. Ultimately, Caesar's victory at Pharsalus took him to the pinnacle of Roman power, effectively ending the state of the Republic. Modern historian Paul K. Davis wrote, "The battle itself did not end the civil war, but it was decisive and gave Caesar a much-needed boost in legitimacy. Until then, much of the Roman world outside Italy supported Pompey and his allies due to the extensive list of clients he held in all corners of the Republic. After Pompey's defeat, former allies began to align themselves with Caesar, as some came to believe the gods favored him.